learned so much from my mom over the years, so much things that I didn't even realize. And I'm just realizing now how bright, she was amazingly bright, and I knew that. And the things that come flooding in. And just the other day, the day after she died, I was in her office cleaning out her desk, and I found this book on her desk. And this is, it's the Second Treasury of the Familiar. This is a book that she loved, and it's a very old book, and she used to read this with her father, my grandfather. And it has poetry and sayings and a lot of just great famous expressions. And it has some, it's some well-marked places here. And I just picked it up and I looked at where it was marked on this particular day. And I found it was marked to a piece called Of Death by Francis Bacon. And I read this very, very closely because I discovered then that this is something that she had been reading at that time. And I'll share it with you now, or an excerpt from it. It's called Of Death by Francis Bacon. Men fear death as children fear to go to the dark. Certainly, the contemplation of death as the wages of sin and passage to another world is holy and religious. But the fear of it, as a tribute due unto nature, is weak. It is worthy of observing that there is no passion in the mind of man so weak, but it mates the master and masters the fear of death. And therefore, death is not such a terrible enemy after all, when a man has so many attendants about him that he can win the combat with death. Revenge triumphs over death. Fear over death. Love slights it. Honor aspireth to it. Grief fleeth to it. Fear preoccupies it. And I read this, and it was so meaningful to me in reflecting about my mom and her courage and her spirit, especially in her final years when she was had become sick with her lung disease. And I remember when she first became sick, and there was a time when we were bringing her to the hospital, and I could sense in my mom a fear of death initially, and it was very disconcerting to see this in my mom. It was not something I was used to. But very quickly, as time went on, that evaporated. I didn't see that anymore, and what I saw in her was this amazing courage. And she wasn't afraid of death at all. She embraced it, and she really mastered it, just like this. She prepared for death. She knew it was coming over the long term, and her attitude was just so strong. It was like, bring it on. I am ready, whenever, whatever. And to me, that it really embodies my mom's spirit, and to me is in a way her last lesson to me. Death, as we know, there's a time to be born and a time to die, and it's going to happen to all of us. And at least when my time comes, I'm going to think of my mom and her last lesson to me, and not to be afraid. And again, I thank you for coming, and if any of you have anything you'd like to share with all of us about my mom, please feel free to do so now. Yes?
I'll share something. I don't think she was afraid because she was riding and calling and fighting the battle. Her mind wasn't still for a minute, and I admired that. And every new challenge